Dear Life is the Mission, I was told not to learn anything about other people's faith as that would cause me to doubt my own faith. Why are you religions so afraid of us learning about other people's religions? Wow, good question. Welcome to Life is the Mission. First, knowledge is a wonderful thing. The pizza was just flatbread until someone dared to put cheese and sauce on it. Tradition and its evil counterpart, traditionalism, play a foundational role in what our minds will allow us to believe. Yes, our brains will more often than not only allow us to perceive that which we find predetermined to be plausible, without the influence of hypnosis or psilocybin mushrooms, okay? I probably didn't say that right, but I have a friend who's an expert. For the same reason, it is hard for someone who is born and raised in atheism to take on the historical understanding of a deistic religion. It's hard for any of us to step outside of our fundamental belief, whether that be Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, or the myriad of others. In fact, even Judaism to Christianity is an enormous leap, and they are the direct cousins. And of course, one could also say that about Judaism and Islam. So my fears of someone stepping out of their religion is minimal compared to someone having historically lost touch with the true intention of their religion centuries ago. Historian N.T. Wright informed accurately in teaching, we cannot stand outside of our worldview any more than we can see without our eyes. Our own worldview is the lens through which the world is seen. On a secular side of our religion questions, we have the anti-religions of atheism. I personally believe that atheism is at minimum a faith, if not a religion. At very least, it is a tradition that has its own set of foundational anti-theology. I say that with great respect to my atheist friends. It takes a great faith in one's own intellect to unequivocally declare there is no creator and I ultimately answer to nothing but my own conscience in the few years that I'm alive. I respect an atheist more than many other religions. They are faith-staking their very eternity on a belief in no ultimate karma or no ultimate moral courtroom. This takes a lot of guts. It would be so much easier to gravitate toward any deistic religion, if for nothing more than eternal insurance and emotional comfort. I do have respect, my dear atheist friends, for your desire to put the modern fossil record up against a 6,000-year-old creation tradition. The religious narrative surely has a lot of hoops to jump through if it takes the oral tradition of Genesis in absolute literal form. I understand that. I'm sure my atheist friends have also looked at the various religions and been dissuaded by the lack of peace that has come out of the religions that claim to be seekers of peace. Albeit the human rights record of these karma-resistant atheist souls is also often tragic. Where there is no God, there is no fear of facing eternal repercussion for any narcissistic actions. But in their defense, one could say that the irreligious have acted much like the religious. Between atheism and agnosticism, we have Karl Marx, being famed for calling religion opium of the masses. He was not far from right. Religion has been used to rape and enslave large groups of people. And with that quote, we look at our agnostic friends. Agnosticism is where most people really are, even though they might be involved in a major religion. To be fully agnostic is to say, I just don't know if there is an ultimate courtroom led by a super being. So I choose to remain uncommitted. Again, this too takes a lot of guts. It would be much easier to do as most of the world and gravitate to the religion of their local community, if for nothing more than emotional support. Even the slightest fear of the eternal, unknown, makes people kinder to each other. One can be partially agnostic. Most religious people are partial or closet agnostics. Their symbolic faith is really just shallow insurance policies for eternity. They do not strongly live out the actions or traditions of their particular rite or order, because to them, theology itself is questionable at best. I understand, my agnostic friends. We all find ourselves claiming a faith at times for reasons based on heritage rather than personal experience. Why do we find so many scientists and educators in these first two pseudo-religious categories of atheism and agnosticism? Great question. A question that deserves an answer. In brief, I would have to say that monotheistic religions as a whole, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, have not left room for science at their table. As a short example, I will cite the treatment of Galileo and his planetary order confirmation. The church rejected his propagation of the theorem of the earth revolving around the sun because they believe it was contrary to biblical text. Today, that church would agree with Galileo, and though I would still love to talk about that, we will save it for another discussion. I promise you will want to be part of that discussion. For now, let's cross over the secular sacred fence and understand another two religions before we wrap up for the day. Some would say that communism is a religion. I would reject that thought and call communism, socialism, and capitalism a result of an ideology. We will discuss these also in future discussions. Let's respectfully look at Buddhism, which boasts a following of 7% of the world population. As in most religions, there is a great diversity among their followers from one area to another. I certainly find the teachings of Buddha easier to understand than many other religious books. They do have beautiful temples, interesting rituals, and a simple, almost organic aura to them. Their religion is based on three foundational blocks. First, life brings about suffering. Secondly, the cause of this suffering is humankind's own craving for things. And thirdly, one will eventually find the path from consumeristic slavery to non-consumeristic peace. Additionally, they believe that by following the 8 basic mantras or teachings of the Buddha, this will lead a person more rapidly to this constant state known as nirvana. Their commandments include abstinence from killing others, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and intoxication. The religion's end goal is for everyone to come to an inner nirvana or peace that would earn rebirth to another earthly location. So far, it's a pretty nice deal. I think that most of us trust a life on earth more than a life in heaven. Outside of the reincarnation portion, one could almost slide their teachings alongside of most religions and most religious prophets. Buddhism is seen more as a lifestyle rather than a belief system. Note that for later. We'll come back to that. Again, Buddhism is seen more as a lifestyle rather than a belief system. Buddhism is not without problems. They too have had their fair share of skirmishes, though they renounce war. As with every religion, when manipulated by leaders using the religion for self-centered gain, this happens. But for the most part, Buddhists are peaceful. Unfortunately, their religion has not significantly improved the lifestyle of their dominant countries. That is especially true if we see affluence or modernity as an improvement. Okay, if you look at that, you can say, well, they haven't caused that. One cannot help but ask if North American capitalism has led us to believe that happiness can only be found in wealth and modernity. Okay, consider that also. Now, let's not forget Hinduism, as their followers number 15% of the world population. Their sacred texts, the Holy Vedas, date back to 1,500 years before the coming of Christ, and is claimed to be verbally inspired by one true deity represented in a somewhat Trinitarian form. This Trinity being described by some as one male God, one female God, and one androgynous, both male and female, God. Their basic belief is that your actions in this life determine your position in the next life, and your actions in that life would determine your actions in another life. Every action, good or evil, could lead to reincarnation as a great leader or a lowly animal. They believe that mankind is an immortal soul. As with many religions, in my estimation, their beliefs have not led to the inner peace of their human people as a whole. On human rights, their women are respected while being considered under the divine leadership of the husband. Considering the country of India itself, some say that Hinduism has not greatly improved the social standing of their people, as it continues to limit people to a predetermined place in society through the caste system. But understand, their comprehension of reincarnation would allow them to say you're reincarnated into a different class, a better class, which technically allows them to believe that the class system is justifiable in that situation. Again, poverty is a rampant problem for them. Their most famous recent representative was the internationally respected Mahatma Gandhi. Though keeping firm to his Hindu roots, he welcomed contact with other religions, especially the Christian doctrines. Now, let me give a respectful nod to Confucianism for a minute. This religion is based on the wisdom of the Chinese philosopher Kangxi, also known as Confucius. Like the Quran and the Tanakh, many of the teachings have been passed down in oral traditions to a distant generation of students before being put to paper. Their sacred text is known as the Analects, and the underlying premise is to never impose anything on another that you would not impose upon yourself. Very similar to the golden rule found in the writings attributed to Yeshua Jesus in Matthew chapter 7. Confucianism teaches that human beings are fundamentally good and can be better and even perfect through personal commitment and communal discipleship. Many people of many religions would accept that basic premise. Would you? Let's talk about Sikhism. You've seen Sikhs before in our community. Sikhism comes in at less than 1% of the world population, but deserves an introduction. Their holy book is a collection of 6,000 hymns from their various gurus. Their doctrines consist of 3 duties. First, keep God in mind at all times. Secondly, earn an honest living. And thirdly, give to charities and care for others. Again, some would find this religion to be very close to the teachings of other great prophets of other well-known religions. I have not had the opportunity to personally interview a Sikh, but we are working on that. We'll get to it. For the sake of time, we must wrap up this discussion. What is our takeaway? Mine is that I have to respect the philosophies of each group. I realize that my bent is always going to be toward the religion or anti-religion taught me in my formative years. For me to step out of my religion or even change directions within my own religion might be close to a miracle, yet possible. I also learn that there are some surprising similarities in the foundations of other religions and anti-religions to my own tradition. Meanwhile, I am learning that I want to live in such a way that brings goodness and life to all the inhabitants of the earth. I never want my quest for knowledge to interfere with being the kindest and best person I can be to my neighbors on my block and my neighbors around the world. Join me in that. Thus, I close with our Life is the Mission mantra. It goes like this. Where there is doubt and disillusionment, let me bring life. Where there is darkness and despair, let me bring life. Where there is ignorance and misunderstanding, let me bring life. Where there is hatred and heartache, let me bring life. Where there is unfairness and injustice, let me bring life. Life is the mission. Life is my mission. Invite a friend to join these discussions. I can't wait for our next discussions, continuing on the 3 big Abrahamic religions. Have a great week. Peace.